The Internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the history of the controversial decision to relocate citizens across the West Coast, by Charles River Editors, narrated by Colin Fluxman. Introduction. I don't want any of them here. They are a dangerous element. There is no way to determine their loyalty. It makes no difference whether he is an American citizen. He is still a Japanese. American citizenship does not necessarily determine loyalty, but we must worry about the Japanese all the time until he is wiped off the map. General John L. DeWitt, head of the Western Command. The truth is, as this deplorable experience proves, that constitutions and laws are not sufficient of themselves. Despite the unequivocal language of the Constitution of the United States that the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended, and despite the Fifth Amendment's command that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, both these constitutional safeguards were denied by military action under Executive Order 9066. Supreme Court Justice Tom C. Clark. All Americans are familiar with the day that will live in infamy. At 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, December the 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor, the advanced base of the United States Navy's Pacific Fleet, was ablaze. It had been smashed by aircraft launched by the carriers of the Imperial Japanese Navy. All 8 battleships had been sunk or badly damaged. 350 aircraft had been knocked out, and over 2,000 Americans lay dead. Indelible images of the USS Arizona exploding and the USS Oklahoma capsizing and floating upside down have been ingrained in the American conscience ever since. In less than an hour and a half, the Japanese had almost wiped out America's entire naval presence in the Pacific. Even before Congress declared war on Japan the day after Pearl Harbor, the implications for people of Japanese ancestry living in the United States had begun. On December 7th, several hundred Issei, or first-generation Japanese immigrants, were arrested in Hawaii and on the mainland, having been earlier identified by the FBI as potentially disloyal to the United States. In the months that followed, the scope of suspicion would expand to include all of the 125,000 Japanese living on the mainland, and though a smaller percentage, many in Hawaii as well. By the time the war ended, the period of internment of Japanese immigrants and citizens, lasting from 1941 to 1945, was considered one of the most unfortunate episodes of American history. Many government officials in the immediate aftermath of the war era continue to defend internment, citing the possibility of attack and the need to protect Americans at all costs. There were many Americans, however, whose rights as citizens went unprotected, and political arguments aside, no American can fail to acknowledge the costs of internment to Nikkei families, physically, financially, socially, and psychologically. Oregon's poet laureate, Lawson Fusao Inada, was relocated to internment camps in 3 states, first entering at age 4. His poetry often reflects on the cost of internment for families. His poem, From Our Album, contrasts the reality of life before and after internment through the eyes of a child. Before the war. Before the war means Fresno, a hedged-in house, 2 dogs in the family. Blackie, the small one, mine, lapped at his insides on the floorboard on the way to the doctor. Jimmy, my father's shepherd, wouldn't eat after the evacuation. He wouldn't live with another master, and pined away, skin and bone. With feelings more than pride, we call him our one-man dog. Song of Chicago. When the threat lessened, when we became tame, my father and friends took a train to Chicago. For factory work, for packaging bolts. One grew a mustache and called himself Carlos, and they all made a home with those of their own. Rats, bedbugs, blacks. The internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the history of the controversial decision to relocate citizens across the West Coast, examines one of the darkest chapters in American history. Key terms. In any discussion of the internment of Japanese American civilians, it is vital to understand the names assigned to the different categories of people of Japanese descent in America at the outbreak of war. Densho, a non-profit organization that is dedicated to passing on memories and information about internment,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?